Hey team, I hope you're doing well. Today I'm here to talk to you about a subject you might have heard about on the news or seen on the internet, but you might not actually know anything about. And that topic is stem cells. Now, stem cells are a really hot new topic in biology, um, but a lot of people don't actually know what they are. So today I want to give you a quick little overview of what a stem cell is, and then talk about what stem cells might look like in plants and animals and different kinds of stem cells. Two kind of disclaimers. First of all, this video is intended for a high school level of science. Some things are going to be a little bit simplified. This isn't going to be the full story of stem cells. So if you're looking for like a researcher's guide to stem cells or a doctor's guide to stem cells, this is absolutely not the video you should watch. This is a very basic guide to stem cells. The second disclaimer is there are many ethical issues surrounding stem cells and how we get them and where they come from, and they're not quite as intense as they used to be, and I'm going to mention those ethical issues kind of at the end of the video, or maybe in the middle, but I want to be clear that the point of this video is just to explain what stem cells are in a scientific sense. It's not to talk about whether they're a good idea or bad idea, just kind of give you more of a definitional understanding of what a stem cell is. So let's get started. So before we talk about stem cells, let's talk about regular cells. Let's imagine you're a skin cell, maybe a skin cell, or maybe a nerve cell. Or maybe you're in a plant and you are maybe you're some kind of like leaf cell, right? So let's kind of put these off to the side. These are all, I did not leave myself enough room there. So these are all typical cells. Okay, so these are just kind of off to the side. These are typical cells. So if you have a skin cell, when a skin cell, so let's imagine we have a skin cell here. Okay, just kind of a lumpy mass skin cell. Actually, you know what? Maybe we could draw it. Let me go into my box of markers. Let's ignore the skin cell. Let's get cool. Let's see if we can see this. Maybe we could have a fleshy colored skin cell. Okay. Let's see. Is that pretty close to my skin tone? No, not at all. Cool. This is an actual color that people are. Whatever. But if you have a skin cell, that skin cell is going to divide, and it's going to make two more skin cells, right? So we have one skin cell, and when it divides, it's going to make more skin cells. I think I spelled skin right. That looks wrong. That might not be how you spell skin, just for the record. If it's not, sorry everybody. On the other hand, let's get gray for nerves, because that's what color nerves are. If we have a nerve cell, that's kind of what a nerve cell looks like. If you have a nerve cell and it divides, it's going to make two brand new nerve cells, right? And I'm just drawing them a little bit smaller because when cells first divide, they're a little bit smaller, and I'm going to run out of room. If you are a leaf cell, let's see, leaf cells are nice and square. Come on, green. If you're a leaf cell and you divide, you're going to make two brand new leaf cells. Okay, right, so we got a leaf here. We got two brand new leaf cells. And that's all well and good, right? Because if you're, hey, let's imagine the skin on the outside of your body, when it gets damaged, you have to replace it with more skin. And if you're a leaf and you get damaged by a storm or a bug or whatever, the plant needs to replace those leaf cells with more leaf cells, right? And that's a really efficient system because the body doesn't need to think, hey, if your skin gets damaged, all the cells around it are going to make the same type of cells and replace themselves, and it's kind of a foolproof system, right? So if you lose some of these or you need some new ones, you just make more. And that works for the most part for most of the cells in your body. But you might then ask the question, hey, didn't we all start as one cell, right? We kind of all start out life, right? So let's say this typical cell thing is just kind of an aside, right? So let's imagine we're starting life off, right? We've got a sperm cell and we've got an egg cell. And these come together and they make something called a blastocyst. That probably spelled wrong, but forgive me. I'm going to eventually, kind of over time, that blastocyst is going to start to multiply and 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 multiply until it's about 20 cells big, and we'll start to call it an embryo. Okay? And we're talking here, this particular embryo, not all embryos are 15 to 20 cells, but what we want to talk about is when an embryo is 15 to 20 cells big. Because when that embryo is 15 to 20 cells big, all of these cells are considered stem cells. And that's because none of these cells have decided what they want to be yet, right? Because if you start from just one cell, right? Let's take a human, for example. There's no way this one cell could be a liver cell, and a skin cell, and a nerve cell, and an eye cell, and a rod, and a cone, and white blood cells, and red blood cells. That just isn't possible. So what's going to happen is it's going to divide into 15 to 20 cells. I mean, all of these cells, every single one of these 15 to 20 cells in this brand new embryo has the potential at this point to become any cell in the human body. Okay, and so these are what a lot of scientists call like true stem cells, or they might call them undifferentiated stem cells, or they might call them pluri, like the word plural, like lots and lots and lots of things, pluripotent stem cells. And we're going to kind of come back and talk about these vocab later, but these undifferentiated, or these pluripotent stem cells, have the potential to become any cell in the body, which you can imagine is a pretty useful thing. Okay, so these are the true stem cells, and eventually these are the cells. Some of these cells are going to become liver cells, some of these cells are going to become skin cells, some of these cells are going to become brain cells, whatever, you name it. So these cells are really cool because every single one of them has the potential to become any single cell in your body. So I'll kind of talk about why these are important to scientists, right? Because if you're a scientist, you can pull one of these out. Eventually, we're not quite able to do this yet, but the kind of idea is you can pull one of these cells out and grow a new heart. You could pull one of these cells out, right? Maybe we'll draw this out, right? If you could pull, for a true stem cell, right? We have a true stem cell here. In true stem cells, it's not like a very scientific term for this, but I find it helps students remember it when they're first learning it, right? like an undifferentiated or a pluripotent stem cell. Those are much more scientific ways of thinking about it and talking about it. But a true stem cell is a little bit easier if you're first learning to talk about, right? So if you have a true stem cell, this true stem cell might become a heart. And I'm drawing a heart like a cartoon heart because I completely lack the ability to draw an actual heart. These stem cells might branch out and become some lungs. Let's see if I could draw lungs that look realistically accurate. And just for the record, these are lungs, no matter what they might look like. These are definitely, truly, absolutely lungs. Let's label them lungs. All right, we might have lungs. They might become a heart. Right, maybe you get one of these that becomes, right, some muscles. Or let's see if we can draw a nice buff arm here. Right, muscles. Okay, or anything else, right? The possibilities. The possibilities here are endless. So if you're a researcher, hey, what would be really cool if somebody needs a heart? Well, we could just regrow them a new heart. If somebody needs new lungs, maybe we could just regrow them new lungs. And here's the kind of controversial thing that I'm not going to go into too much. The controversial thing is really the best way to get stem cells is from an embryo, right? So in in vitro fertilization clinic, they'll take in a sperm and an egg and they'll combine them together. And they won't end up implanting all of those in host mothers. And so the ones that are left over, oftentimes they're sold to stem cell research clinics. And in the past years, we've had some kind of success turning like heart cells and lung cells and muscle cells back into stem cells. But it doesn't work as well as having those stem cells that are taken truly right out of an embryo. So as you can imagine, there's kind of some controversy about using embryos that could theoretically turn into a person for stem cell research. But the ethics of that are for another video. Okay. Now, there is another, so let's just kind of draw a squiggly line here. Okay, so these are, we'll separate these out. We got stem cells. So we got like true stem cells over here. And then there's another kind of stem cells. These are called these are called multipotent stem cells. And these bad boys are still super duper cool, but they're not quite as cool as the true stem cells. And the reason for that is multipotent stem cells are limited to what they can turn into. They can only turn into 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 things. So if you think about something like a lizard, okay? You might know that if you have a lizard, let's see if I can actually draw a lizard here. We're gonna do like a very simplified lizard. Just take my word for it that this is a lizard. We'll even label it so you know what it's talking about, Liz. Right? If we have a lizard and it loses its tail, for whatever reason, some lizards can actually get rid of their own tails when they're being chased by predators. And some lizards will have their tails eaten off by predators. But over time, they can take those tails and they can grow them back. And the reason for that is because in this kind of region of the lizard here, we have multipotent stem cells, right? We have little cells, and these cells can turn into a few different things, right? They can turn into all the things possible to make a tail. Because when you think about it, tails has lots of different cells in it, right? It has blood cells, it has bone cells, it has fat cells, it has skin cells, it has scale cells. So this thing can become blood cells and bone cells. We have blood cells, bone cells. What other kind of cells? Did I just say skin cells? But it can't become anything, right? This can only it can only be a tail, right? If a lizard's tail gets cut off, it's not going to regrow an arm here. It's not going to grow a leg here. It's not going to grow a tail here. It's not going to grow eyeballs there. It's only going to grow a tail there. And that's because these stem cells are multipotent. And we see that in all different kinds of plants and animals. If you cut a branch off a tree, or if you pull leaves off a tree, new leaves might grow back, but roots aren't going to grow off the branch of a tree. And if you cut off, and like we talked about, if you cut off the tail of a lizard, only a lizard tail is going to grow back, right? And so that's why something like a lizard can regrow its tail, but a human can't regrow something like its arms. Because when you're a human, by the time you get to be an adult, the stem cells aren't stem cells anymore. So anyways, the reason this all works is because of these genes called Hox genes, okay? And Hox genes are one gene that turns a bunch of genes on and off, right? So in humans, we have 39 of them, right? And the Hox gene is, if you have a stem cell, and the Hox gene for, I'm going to oversimplify this. This isn't exactly how it works in the real world, but you can kind of think of it like this. If the Hox gene to make a heart gets turned on, then that gene will turn in all the other genes in that cell's DNA. I'm going to end up making a heart. So in true stem, right, so we have these Hox genes. The reason we have stem cells is because of Hox genes. And these Hox genes control many genes to make complex organs. So if you think about making a heart or making lungs or making muscles, takes lots and lots of genes working together. So if you activate the Hox gene for a heart in a cell, it's going to activate all the other pieces of DNA in that cell needed to make a heart. Or if the Hox gene for a finger gets activated, here's my finger. If a Hox gene for a finger gets activated, it's going to activate all the cells needed to make a finger. And so in stem cells, none of these Hox genes are turned on, right? They're all turned off. So those cells, any single one of those Hox genes could be activated, and those cells would go on to make those cells. So in a truly undifferentiated, right, if we look at a, we'll put the scientific name here. So if we look at a pluripotent stem cell, it has no Hox genes activated. Okay, and if we look at a multipotent Hox gene, we have some Hox genes. Right, we have some Hox genes that are active, but not others, right? We have Hox genes that make blood and bone and skin, but we don't have Hox genes that make arms and heads. So if we think about this, the same thing applies to plants and animals. The reason humans can't regrow, if I look at my arm here, if I lost this hand, it would never grow back because I don't have any stem cells in my hand. If you look at a lizard and they lose their tail, they can regrow it because they have multipotent stem cells in their tail, which will allow this tail to regrow. If you look at a leaf, or if you look at a tree, roots, right? Trees are constantly growing. They grow forever. So they need stem cells. They need some multipotent stem cells, right? So their leaves can continuously, so their branches can continuously grow leaves. Or they need multipotent stem cells in their roots, so their roots can continuously grow roots. So we have this kind of, if you were ever wondering, hey, how come plants seem to be able to regrow all kinds of body parts, and lizards can regrow tails, but I can't regrow my hands? And the reason for that is stem cells, right? Stem cells are the things that allow stuff to regrow. So just to multicap, we have pluripotent stem cells, and these cells can become anything. But we only find these in embryos, right? Whether that's a plant embryo or a lizard embryo or a human embryo or a fungus embryo, these stem cells can become anything. Once organisms are fully developed, some organisms in some places have multipotent have multipotent stem cells, which will let them regrow certain organs, right? But if you think about a tree, if you cut off a leaf, roots aren't going to grow in its place. And if you cut off the roots, leaves aren't going to grow in its place, right? So plants can only regrow certain organs from certain locations, just like a lizard can only regrow its tail when it's cut off. So hopefully that was kind of a quick and easy explanation of what stem cells are. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them on the comments. If there's anything else you want to learn about, also feel free to drop them in the comments. Otherwise, have a great day. May the force be with you.